May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So, today we've got a guest, Kamala Cesar Buckner. Kamala is a dancer, and she was a student of Shunryu Suzuki's and a student of Bala Saraswati, Bala Saraswati, an Indian dance teacher. That's interesting. Saraswati is... Well, just in terms of the Hinduism I know in Bali, represents education, the arts, like a goddess of, and I have a Saraswati, little tiny one, like 4-inch statue that Katrinka got me. That's in my other recording studio where with my new one, where I'm working on the audio book for Thank You and Okay now. All right, Bala Saraswati, very interesting. Kamala founded Lotus Music and Dance in New York City. And I was just looking at her page on Cuke.com. I suggest you go read her interview there. It touches on stuff that we don't get to in this phone chat. She's had a life around dance and has been quite involved in with her Mohawk ancestry in New York. And a couple of years ago, there was a big Drums Along the Hudson event that I featured on Cuke.com that she was like the artistic director of it, or it was sponsored by Lotus Music and Dance, a Native American and multicultural festival. But she said it happens every year. And she talks about that a little bit in our discussions here. So, all right. So if you want to read on Cuke.com, just her interview there, just go to Cuke.com and write Kamala, Kamala, in the site search box. It'll come up. Kamala Cesar Buckner. Or you can go to the drop-down menu for people and hit names and get it there. But the site search box is the easiest thing to use. Okay. Well, look, after we've had our pause to meditate, we'll get right into that call to Kamala. See what was happening. I think, I have this problem a lot. The call kept going to voicemail. So she didn't hear the phone ringing. I had another number for them. And got through that way, and then something like that. So it took a while. So you can hear it right at first. You go, oh, finally. Okay, so let's hear it from Kamala. Right after our pause to meditate. So when you hear the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you like. And when you're through, hit unpause. And we'll be here to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever, and we'll get on with this talk with Kamala Cesar Buckner.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Ah, well, we made it. Ah,
Yeah.
good, good. How you doing?
Hanging in there, trying to just taking it day by day.
Yeah. How's let's see, what's the name of your dance thing? Lotus?
Lotus Music and Dance.
Oh yeah, Lotus Music and Dance. How's that going?
Yeah, well, we are surviving. There's been a lot of sort of American Rescue Plan money being pumped into uh, the arts, world, and a lot of the schools have gotten this money, and they've been booking our artists like a lot.
Mm.
So we've been very busy, uh, getting artists into the schools. So that's good. That's good.
Ah, what sort of artists?
Well, we do music, dance from all over the world. So we have Japanese, Indonesian, Indian, Native American, Persian, you name it, we got it.
Mm. That's wonderful. You studied Indian dance, as I
Yes,
recall.
South Indian. Yeah.
Wow. How'd that come about?
Well, let's see. I was in Berkeley, living in Berkeley, and I was in the theater group called the Floating Lotus Magic Opera Company.
Oh, Daniel Moore,
Yes,
fantastic. Oh,
yes,
gosh.
and uh, and it was through some ballet dancer who used to come and work with the group, who went to UCLA and studied with my teacher, Bala Saraswati, one summer. And she came back and told us about how amazing this dance form was, and turned out there was someone teaching in Berkeley who was a disciple of Bala, and
Mm.
I started taking classes.
Mm. Mm. And, um, oh, that's fantastic. I forgot you were with the Floating Lotus Magic Opera. Bahadine, what was his name? He changed it. No.
Abdul Hai.
Oh, yeah, right, right. Bahadine
Yeah.
was another person I know who took a name from that
Uh-huh.
part of the world. Oh, um, well,
And it's interesting that Daniel was the one that actually taught me how to sit, because he had been involved with Zen Center.
oh, wow. Let's, I want to hear about it.
Yeah, well, the Floating Lotus was basically a group of people they were all sort of exploring different types of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what brought everyone together. That's what, like we did together. We started all of our, you know, work, on the plays and stuff, in a meditation circle.
Ah,
And then there are a lot of, people doing different types of practices. And Daniel had talked about his involvement with Zen Center.
what year was that we're talking about?
1968.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I started, after he told us these stories about Suzuki Roshi, I decided I wanted to explore Zen more.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the Zen Center when it was still at the synagogue, and went
Mm-hmm.
to one of the zazen sessions, and then started studying in Berkeley. at the Berkeley Zendo.
Oh, yeah. And so what was it like for you?
Well, I mean, it was seemed like this really be kind of like what I was looking for. It sort of suited me.
Yeah.
And somehow because of, I don't know, Daniel had a friend that then said, I can't remember her name now. But I had called and said I would like to, can we do our she, and she arranged it. And I got to meet him.
68, maybe Yvonne Rand.
No, it wasn't Yvonne. It was another older woman. I can't remember her name.
Pat Harrisoff?
Maybe. She was an older woman.
Catherine Thanis.
So Suzuki came to Berkeley and, spoke to our group a number of times. And then, I'd go to San Francisco. And at one point, I told Suzuki I wanted to go to Tasahara, and he said, she can go to Tasahara to visit, but, you shouldn't, go there to practice. You should practice in San Francisco. And so then I moved over to the San Francisco Dance Center for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Yoshimura Sensei was there. You remember him, the visiting priest from Japan?
Well, there was Kobuchino. Dining Katagiri, is Suzuki's assistant.
Yeah.
He came in 64, and he and Suzuki were almost like a team.
Yeah.
So, well, do you remember anything in particular about Suzuki, meeting him, or any exchange?
Well, the first time I had Goku-san with him, I was kind of like, dressed like very colorfully, from the Floating Lotus,
Right.
style, and had very long hair. And he said to me, "Why don't you cut your hair?" So I said, "Well, if you want to cut my hair, cut my hair." So he looked around and he said, I can't find a pair of scissors." So then he said, "When you go back to your friends, you tell them I cut your hair."
So anything more there?
Not really. I mean, we always sort of just talked about my dancing and just practicing. Very simple, straightforward. And I remember the first 7-day session I sat was with him, in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll never forget the thing that he said to everyone the first day. He said, if this is your first time, it's very difficult. It'll be very difficult. It'll be very painful. He said, but, if it gets too hard, go and take some rest or, take a break, but don't leave.
Uh-huh.
And, it was great, yeah.
Well, how was it?
It was difficult, for sure, but everybody stayed.
It's still difficult for me.
Yeah.
I've done some Vipassana retreats here. But they've been good. So, did you make it down to Tassajara?
I did. It was in December, and I'll never forget. This is so crazy. It was pouring rain, trying to get down there, and when a friend of mine drove me down there. So when we got down there, the road was closed, or you couldn't get in. So I had to wait overnight in this little house, and then when it stopped raining, the only way I could get there was to walk in, to walk from the beginning of that gatehouse. And Had no idea how far it was.
Oh my gosh,
I
that's
guess,
14 miles.
yeah. But I made it.
Wow, like you could have December the road was did you say December?
It was December, yeah.
And the
It was like
road was
over Christmas. It had been raining. There was terrible rain, and I
huh.
guess it was the rain. The road was washed out.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's unusual time for there to be terrible rain or for the road to be washed out. Usually it's more like in February or around then. Wow. That's a heck of a walk. I mean, I've done it, but whoa. So,
Yeah,
yeah, beautiful walk though, huh?
yeah,
Wow. So, and what a time to go there. That's like the coldest
yeah,
time of the year with the least sun. I mean, there's hardly any sun at that time because it's in that deep valley. So,
yeah,
so well, that was the least. That was the most zen time to go there.
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and it sounds like you went during the interim after the practice
Yeah,
period was over.
that's right. It
Uh,
was. Yeah.
wow, wow. So, how long did you stay there?
I think I stayed about a week.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Wow. That would that's a very interesting experience of Tassajara. And you've been back.
I think I went back a couple of times.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you been back in recent decades?
No, actually,
Oh,
no. I haven't.
oh, I miss it. I'd love to go
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
So, where do you come from?
I was born in Brooklyn.
Uh-huh. Well, I'd sort of like to hear what led you from being born in Brooklyn to the Floating Lotus Magic Opera.
Well, I actually went out to California to go to college. Um, I had gone to college for a year in a small college in the Midwest and didn't really like it. And then I moved to New York and went to NYU. I had a day job and I went at night. And I had a roommate who had been to UC Berkeley for a summer course. And she had decided she wanted to go back to Berkeley. So she said, why don't you come with me? So I did.
Mm.
And while I was kind of waiting, you needed to establish residency, in order to go to the university, without paying. So I somehow got involved with the Floating Lotus and kind of got me on a whole different path.
Oh, oh, wow. And did you spend much time at UC Berkeley?
Well, I eventually went. I eventually went back to school,
Yeah.
and I got my degree from UC Berkeley.
Oh, wow, wow. I think it's harder to do now.
Yeah.
Everything's more expensive. Poor young people. Things were
Yeah.
so much better
Yeah.
for us. God. Mm. And what'd you get a degree in?
I got a degree in environmental sciences.
Wow. Now you come from there is as I recall it's Mohawk in your ancestry, right?
Right. Right. My mother was Mohawk.
What was that like? I mean, did you how did that influence you?
Well, it really didn't growing up because my mother didn't tell us we were Mohawk when we were growing up.
Wow.
Yeah, she told us we were a French Canadian because she was born on the Canadian side of the Mohawk Reservation. And as a child, when her mother died, and the father was, not in the picture, they sent it her to a boarding school, an Indian boarding school in Canada. And of course, the story of these boarding schools, the whole purpose was to sort of, wipe out their culture. And so
Oh.
they were not allowed to speak the language, and they were pretty much taught that being Indian was bad. So because she was ashamed to admit she was Indian, and she didn't tell. I didn't know I was Mohawk until I was in high school.
Oh, that's terrible. God. Well, that's changed now.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. You've been involved with the Mohawk, what do you call it? The Mohawk Nation? Or
Yeah,
in in recent years?
yeah, when I came back to New York, after I moved back to New York, my mother would come out from California and want to go up to visit her family on the reservation. So I would go up with her, take her up there, like an 8-hour, bus ride from New York City to get up there.
To where?
It's the Mohawk Reservation
Where?
in New York.
Oh, it was
The Mohawks are from New York.
Yeah. Well, 8 hours.
And the reservation.
You're
Reservation is on the border of New York State and Canada.
Wow.
So I would take her up there, and on one of our trips, I met, I was introduced to a young artist, a Mohawk artist, who then introduced me to the traditional, longhouse chief, Tom Porter, and I began to, find out more about traditional Mohawks, because my mother obviously was raised Catholic because she was put into this boarding school.
Yeah.
And, most of her family, had been converted to Catholicism. So, I didn't really know anything about what it really meant to be Mohawk. And so I asked one of my aunts, I said, well, what is the Mohawk, the traditional Mohawk culture all about? And so she said, so she introduced me to this artist, Brad Bonaparte. And so he said, well, why don't you come up to one of the ceremonies? He invited me to go to the midwinter ceremony, which is a 7-day ceremony, it's like the New Year's ceremony. And that's when I met Tom Porter. And then I invited him to come to New York to do a whole series of, basically they were like, to talk about and to show and to explain what goes on throughout the ceremonial year in the Longhouse. And he explained all the different ceremonies, and people could, participate in what they would normally do in the ceremonies, in New York. So it was very educational for everyone, because who knows? I mean, usually people aren't allowed, outsiders aren't allowed to go to the ceremonies.
But you're not really an outsider.
No, I got to go, but most people would not know what that was, what it was like. So, but he agreed that he thought it was a good idea to sort of share that information with people who were interested, and so a lot of people were interested, and it went on for like a year and a half, because it would happen at the time that there were ceremonies were happening in the Longhouse. He would come down with the singers and the dancers, and he would talk about, the midwinter ceremony or the maple ceremony and all the different ceremonies that happened, and explain, what they meant and what they would do in the Longhouse when the ceremonies happened.
Yeah. Now you had this event sponsored by Lotus Music and Dance, Drums Along the Hudson, a Native American and multicultural festival. That was a few years ago.
It happens every year.
Oh,
This is
really?
our 20th. This is our 20th anniversary this year.
Oh, my. And what's that about?
So it started out as basically a powwow, a Native American powwow. We actually applied for a grant from the city to do an outdoor event, and I thought, well, a powwow is usually done outdoors, and so we decided to do a powwow. And there's a park in northern Manhattan, Inwood Hill Park, that I had gone to some Native American events up there because it was originally a Lenape Indian village, and
Mm-hmm.
so this Native American group used to do this event every year. And, basically it was like a powwow. They did singing and dancing, and there'd be craft people there, and it'd be like a celebration, a gathering. And at one point they lost their funding, and it didn't happen. It hadn't happened. Nothing happened. Nothing Native American happened up there in a long time. And so when we got this grant in 2002, um, I went to the Parks Department and I said, well, we have this grant from the city, and we'd like to do a powwow. And they were like, oh, that would be great, because this place historically has this native history, and it would be great to do that. And so we started doing it, and every year it just got bigger and bigger. And I think when we finally, moved the date into June, when the weather was, great, it's like we had like over 8,000 people show up.
Oh, my gosh. That's something.
Yeah, so it's gotten pretty big.
Hmm.
And even last year, after they opened, we were allowed to do it last year. When they started allowing outdoor events
Oh, yeah.
in May and June, and everything had to be done according, to COVID restrictions and checking vaccination cards and all that stuff. And we thought, well, we should do it because some people will want to come. But we had a couple thousand people, so that was not bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's great. That's great. Um, and now you've got that you've got dancers from all over the world. You're talking about, going into the school systems and I guess doing performances, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
They either do performances or they do a residency where, for 6 to 8 weeks, and they teach the children about the culture and the dances, and then the kids perform at the end of the 8 weeks.
Oh, well, that's serious. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I've been to some, like big festival events here in Bali where there's,
Hmm.
everybody thinks about Bali as the place where there's gamelan and dance and stuff like that. But there's gamelan and dance from many, many places in Indonesia, and would see one
Hmm.
after another, and they'd have different types of clothes and dance and
Hmm.
statues and things with them. Do you know? Do you recall anything about what sort of dance came from Indonesia? I mean, it could have been the
Well, you mean in New York?
yeah.
What Balinese dance? What Indonesian? Well, we've worked with a Balinese group that we were kind of centered at the Indonesian consulate or Balinese consulate, and there was a group that worked out of there, and they performed at Drums Bangladesh 1 year, and then there was a young Manipuri dancer from India, and I think it's the dancer that I introduced you to. She was living in Bali. She studied Balinese dance, even though she was Indian. She studied Balinese dance and became very quite good at it.
Oh, you're a student.
Well, she wasn't my student. She was someone who taught at Lotus
Uh-huh.
and performed for us. And then she decided to go to Bali and ended up staying there for quite a while. I think she's back in the States now. I think during the pandemic she had to come back.
Yeah. I just remembered Katrinka and I went to Ubud and saw a student of yours who was studying dance here and met with her. And it was a really nice, like recital of dances, different types, from this school. It was in Mas, which means gold, which is, right on the edge of the town of Ubud. That was great. And she was so nice. And I never saw her again.
Oh.
But, well, you get here, people get busy. And
yeah, I'm curious to know what she's up to because she was really good. I mean, she was an excellent dancer.
yeah.
And she studied the music. She was very serious about learning everything about it, the culture and the dance.
Yeah.
And
well, she knew a lot more than we did. We tend to see we tend to take, like if there's somebody visiting, we take them to Ubud, to the palace to see Lagong.
yeah,
That's the most famous dance here. And it's more than dance. My gosh, it's like a whole ceremony, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a ritual.
And it's different every time, and there, it goes on in different places. But the kachak, which is all men in an a cappella and is so compelling. What a driving chant.
We had that at Lotus actually, a workshop in Kachak.
No kidding.
Yeah, no, I studied Balinese dance actually one summer, 2 summers in Berkeley.
Is that right?
And the teacher that I had, who ended up at Cal Arts teaching Balinese dance.
Oh, wow.
He came to New York and he did a workshop he did a performance in the mass dances. And then he led a workshop in Kachak, so that was a lot of fun.
Oh,
People
Kachak.
really get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the monkey chant.
Oh, yeah. That's the first thing I ever heard about Bali back in about 1978. Andrew Weil, the guy who got well known for his health and healing stuff and experimenting with different types of herbs and drugs and alternative and standard medicine. Anyway, he played a tape. I was visiting him in Tucson. He played a tape. He'd been to Bali of the Kachak, and it was just mesmerizing. And I thought, I want to go there. And then in 92, my prior wife and I, Elin, went to Bali for 2 months, and I saw the Kachak about 4 times. And you can't see it like that anymore. I mean, it was out in the sticks, sitting around outside, and like 100 guys. It was so dynamic.
Oh my goodness.
It's the place is a lot more crowded and developed and everything. Now, those dances were developed by Europeans here back in like the 30s. They took the original dances and they modified them, and they were taking Balinese dancers and Kachak and everything around Europe on tours. And they developed it specifically to help Bali have something to present to tourists. And I know people that, go to villages and see the more original dances. And I've seen a little bit of that. But
Mm-hmm.
so
Well,
go on.
there's a group, there's a West Sumatran dancer that has been living in New York, and that's been working with us over the last couple of years. Now they're celebrating their 10th anniversary. She formed a company and she's been training dancers. And very different. The West Sumatran dance style and music is quite different from Balinese and Javanese.
Oh, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. We have, I think we live streamed the November World Dance Festival, and her group was on the program. You can go to our website probably and see it. I think it's still up.
When did you meet Tom Buckner?
In Berkeley,
Uh-huh.
his first wife was studying Indian dance. And we were in the same class and we were friends. And then I was with Don Buchler at the time, and Don, and because of Don's interest in electronic music, he knew Tom also. So we were all friends.
And when did you and Tom get married?
Not until many years later.
Huh.
When we were in New York.
And I've gone with you to hear Tom sing, and he's got one of the most unique singing styles, and very, what, I don't know, what would you call it? What's it called?
Well, I guess you would call it experimental music, new music.
Yeah, experimental new music. And my mother introduced me to experimental new music when I was young, and I've been involved in different types of experimental music. So I really, really enjoyed that. And so when did you get involved with Richard Baker?
It was right after Suzuki died.
Uh-huh.
So Richard took over, and I continued to to sit at Zen Center up until my teacher came to teach at Mills College that summer, and then just began being very focused on Indian dance, studying with her every summer, and when she came from India, and going wherever she taught at the University of Washington in Seattle one summer, and then the programs were in Berkeley for the next couple of years, and then I went to India to study with her.
And you continued a relationship with Baker through the years, as I have.
Yes, yes. I think that when he was running the Santa Fe Zen Center, I remember going to visit there and sitting there, just as a visitor, I didn't move there. And then when they were talking about starting Crestone, I remember going up to visit to see what it was like, and that's where Tom and I were married, at Crestone.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I love going to Crestone. I missed the whole Santa Fe thing, but I've been fortunate to spend time at Crestone. I love going there, and I love being in Germany at Johanneshof.
Yeah, me too.
That's I've spent months there at a time. And in fact, that's the only, we came to Bali in 2013, and the only time I've left this part of the world was to go for his 80th birthday and the 20th anniversary of Johanneshof, which was great. Were you there? I can't remember what happened.
I don't think we made it for the 20th anniversary celebration, but because usually Tom has a new music festival that he goes to in Czech Republic in August. And usually after that we would go and visit Johannesburg because we were already in Europe.
Yeah. I was there for 3 weeks or something. It was quite an event, and that Shunryu Suzuki's son and his wife came, and I helped out with them because nobody spoke any Japanese. And showed them around. So, I really enjoyed that. So,
Did you get to see the new Zendo they built?
Oh yeah. I've been there a couple of times, and sat in the new Zendo. It's amazing. I just put up a podcast with Lynn Brackett.
Nice.
Richard's, brother-in-law who built that Zendo. Yeah. It just went up Saturday. And in fact, I'm working on a page for him on Cuke.com. I want to get that. I had a little bit, it's a page where I put some links here and there, and stuff about him and link to his podcast and it's so interesting. I visit Lynn when I go to Nevada City, where he is. An amazing relationship with his hawk. That's just as interesting as the Japanese carpentry. And he started a little Zen sitting thing in his college, where many Zen students came to Zen Center. So. Anyway, so, to me, the Zendo it was built by somebody with a real history with Zen Center.
Yeah, exactly.
And also buying that building where it is was, I was, a fly on the wall. I was there earlier when he wanted to get it. I was there before, and it was just this really big building next door. It's a home with like a big shop underneath, and the homes in that area is, I'm sure you've noticed, have barns. The home is built around a barn in a sort of picturesque Black Forest village. And then, he started talking about how they had to acquire it. It was going to become available. And everybody thought, we can't even keep this place up, Johanneshof, which is rather substantial itself. And he said, no, we won't survive unless we have a certain size, unless we can provide a certain amount of activity and space for people. And he's, how articulate he can be and convincing. And so right in the middle of him doing this, I wrote some letter to them supporting it. And I told him, I said, this is exactly what you did at Zen Center to get Green Gulch Farm. That was fantastic. Everybody was against it. And he said, we won't survive unless we have it. I mean, he's so, he's so skilled at doing that. It's that's sort of a vision of things, and he's very good at implementing it. getting
Yeah.
things. I mean, look what he's gotten established is.
Yeah, I know Crestone just keeps growing.
Yeah, and there's so many of us that there are very few people who I could say I can't. I wouldn't be here. I don't know what would have happened with my life without them. And
Hmm.
my parents and Suzuki and Baker. There's
Hmm.
not a lot. I remember seeing you and Tom. I think I was with Katrinka, my present wife,
Hmm.
in Almagoter. What's the name of that town near Crestone? We had,
Alamosa?
yeah, we had dinner together.
Yeah.
That was about uh, 15, 17, no, 16 years ago. I can't remember.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Is it that long ago?
Well, we've been here. No, well, maybe no, maybe 12 years ago. Maybe
Yeah.
12 years ago. Yeah. I mean, we've been here almost 9 years now, so
Hmm.
it had to be more than that. So, Kamala, what else? Do you have anything else to add to this colorful life?
Well, I feel really fortunate that, I've been able to maintain a connection with the Zen Center. I mean, certainly because, I think I saw Richard at your house more than I have in the States.
Uh huh.
Because our schedules are so crazy that usually when we have time to travel, to go to Crestone, he's not there.
Uh huh.
Um,
Uh huh.
because he spends 6 months in Germany and then uh, he's in at Crestone from like the fall and then through the practice period. But that's by the time I think we went one time for the session in December. So I don't think I can handle this again. It
Yeah.
was so cold.
Yeah, I've been there in the winter.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we tend to like go when it's in the summertime.
Yeah, it's like at like 9,000 feet or something, way up
Yeah,
there.
that's pretty serious.
And it's dangerous. I'm 77
Hmm.
now. I don't want to be around icy walks.
I see slippery slopes.
Yeah, he broke his arm last year, wasn't it last year?
I know, crazy.
Yeah. Ooh. Um, yeah.
But we've been doing we did the lecture series on Zoom with some that were recently. It was wonderful. And they were talking about he did a whole series on Suzuki, reading from Suzuki's book, Beginner's Mind, Zen Mind.
Yeah.
It's just
I'm I'm
wonderful.
I'm just getting a hold of that. I want to include it in the archive.
Great.
And I wasn't able to attend it live, but I'm getting it. I'm getting the Zooms.
Great. You're getting the recording.
Yeah,
Good.
I get the recording.
Yeah, they were really wonderful.
I've been I just edited a couple of Suzuki's lecture tapes. They're almost all
Oh.
the Los Altos lecture tapes were lost, but
Mhm.
there's a few that remain, and I found that by going through them and editing them a little, taking out his coughs and excessive spaces, and
Mhm.
clicks and pops in the tapes, it makes them much easier to
Mhm.
listen to. And
Mhm. Well,
so,
those lectures are pretty crazy.
yeah, well, he's got a wild
To listen
mind.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's they both have wild minds, and very original, creative thinking.
Yeah.
And Suzuki comes from a culture where being original and creative is always within a traditional capsule or something. So it tends to be on such a high percentage of what comes out is just what was there before, done with, in a slightly different personal way. But when Suzuki got to America, a lot of those restraints were lifted. And even in that case, I think most Japanese teachers who've come to America still maintained still stayed in Japan in a sense, But Suzuki learned from us and sort of bloomed in America, and he's not the only one who did. There have been a number of Japanese artists and some Buddhist teachers from Japan who've found the freedom of being in the West, a lack of restraints to be liberating. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess unless you have something else to add, I think.
Yeah. Late here, and I think I'm fading fast. I think I'm fading fast.
Well, yeah, you're approaching 10 o'clock at night there.
Yeah. Almost 10:30. That's my bedtime.
Oh, is it really? Is that late? Oh, right. We started late. Yeah, so it's 10:30 in the morning here. Well, gee, why don't you come visit?
Yeah. Oh, geez, I would love to be in Bali again. That was so wonderful. We
Yeah,
had such a great time.
yeah. Yeah, well, I'd love to see you both, and I just don't know if that
Yeah.
will
You never know what's
happen.
going to happen.
Yeah, but at least I got to have a nice talk with you. And
Yeah, it's so great to reconnect all these
yeah,
great stories, and it's really great following what you're doing. I'm so glad you're doing it. It's a great thing.
well, thank you. It keeps me out of trouble. Yeah,
Well, that's important.
yeah, that and my wife. My wife could drink, and
That's
she keeps
good.
me out of trouble.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks a lot. My love to you
Okay,
and Tom, and
Thank you.
stay in touch. Let me know what you're up to. Keep doing that, and
Yeah, will do.
until we meet again, take care.
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So thank you very much, Kamala. Wow. Yeah, and you ought to see like her picture on her page, and dressed in her Indian dance outfit. Very beautiful. This has been a Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Pooh Bob, Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Dogette Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And that nice birdie outside the window. And see, what type is that? Is that a cuckoo? I don't know. I forget. I ask, they tell me, and then I forget. Anyway, we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.